Whenever you look out at a field or a coastline or just a quiet valley, have you ever really stopped and wondered what stories it could tell? Because in a place like County Cork, the landscape isn't just scenery. It's a document, really. One that's been written over thousands of years, with entire chapters of human history hidden just beneath the surface. Okay, let's dive in and start peeling back some of those layers.
So, what you're looking at here, it might just seem like an old stone wall, but it's actually a pre-bog field boundary. Now, what that means is it was built before the peat bog ever covered this land, thousands and thousands of years ago. It really makes you wonder, right? What other secrets are the fields and coastlines we see every day hiding? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out.
Now, to navigate all this deep history, we're going to need a map. For archaeologists, that map is the three-age system. It's a pretty simple but totally brilliant framework that was developed way back in the 19th century. It just organizes prehistory based on what people were making their tools out of, first stone, then bronze, and finally iron. So we'll use this as our guide on this journey.
All right, so our journey begins way back in the Stone and Bronze Ages. This is where we see the first massive upheaval in human history. We're talking about a revolution, but not one of swords. Not yet anyway. This was a revolution of seeds and metal, and it completely laid the foundation for everything that came after.
It all starts with the invention of farming, and honestly, it's hard to overstate what a monumental shift this was. For the very first time, people weren't just surviving anymore, they were building. Think about it. Staying in one place meant permanent homes, and with a steady food supply, some folks could put down their hunting spears and pick up new tools, becoming potters and weavers and jewelers. This wasn't just a new way to get dinner. This was the birth of wealth, of specialized jobs, and really, of community as we know it today.
And just look at the sheer ingenuity on display here. This was not an accident. People in West Cork figured out this incredible multi-step process. They'd heat copper ore with huge fires to make it brittle, then they'd shatter it with stone hammers, and finally smelt it all down to get pure copper. But here's the real game changer. They combined it with tin, a resource they had to trade for all the way from Cornwall. I mean, this was basically one of the first international supply chains ever.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates why that extra effort was so important. See, copper by itself, yeah, it's pretty soft. You can't do a whole lot with it. But bronze, whoa, that's a whole different story. It's way harder, it's less brittle, and it's much easier to cast into complicated shapes. And that meant better tools, much deadlier weapons, and fancier jewelry. Bronze wasn't just a new material. It was the engine of a whole new society, one fueled by trade and power.
But, with all this new wealth and these powerful new weapons, well, things started to get a lot more dangerous. The landscape itself began to change, reflecting a new world of conflict and social hierarchy. By around 1200 BC, the landscape starts to tell a much more violent story. Suddenly, the first really serious defensive enclosures appear, hill forts. This one at Clashinimid is just a stunning example. These weren't just little villages, no way. These were massive, serious fortifications, a clear sign that organized warfare was now a part of life.
Just how massive are we talking? Well, excavations at Clashinimid found a barricade, a combination of a ditch cut out of rock, a stone-faced bank, and a huge timber palisade that stood a staggering 7 meters high. Can you even imagine the resources, the sheer manpower needed to build something like that? And the craziest part? It was burned to the ground shortly after it was finished.
I love this. This quote actually comes from a professor's old exam question, and it captures one of the great puzzles in Irish archaeology. See, the coastal forts in Ireland look almost identical to forts in Britain and France that we know were built by Celtic tribes. But those tribes made a very specific kind of pottery, with a duck-shaped stamp on it. Finding even one piece of that in an Irish fort would finally prove a direct link. But so far, the mystery continues.
Okay, so fast forward a bit. The next huge transformation of the landscape comes from new beliefs and new conquerors, who left their own very distinct and very durable marks on the land of Cork. So in the early Christian period, the countryside was just dotted with thousands of these fortified farmsteads. It's pretty simple. If they were enclosed by an earthen bank, they were called ring forts. If they were enclosed by stone, like this one at Knockdrum, they were called cashels. This was the home of a tribal, hierarchical society, all ruled by local kings.
But a lot of these farmsteads had a secret weapon, hidden right under their feet, souterrains. These were these cleverly built underground stone passages. On a normal day, they were the perfect root cellar, great for cold storage. but during a raid, which happened all the time back then, they became life-saving hideouts, just a crucial and really ingenious piece of defensive architecture.
And then the Normans arrived, and later the resurgent Gaelic lords. And they brought with them a brand new symbol of power, the Tower House. Structures like Blarney Castle weren't just fortified farms, oh no. These were formidable stone towers designed to project feudal authority and to completely control the surrounding land.
But don't picture some grim, cold, miserable existence. Life inside these tower houses was this fascinating blend of defense and domestic comfort. The main hall would have been buzzing with feasts and meetings, and as you went up the tower, the windows actually got bigger, letting in more light on the safer upper floors. And get this, they even had medieval toilets called garderobes built right into the thick stone walls. It's a great reminder that even in a fortress, life was also about showing off your status and living well.
So what happens when you don't have to worry about being attacked all the time? Well, as the medieval period gave way to a time of relative peace, the landscape began to change once again, this time shaped by the new forces of industry and global trade.
This comparison really says it all. Just look at the difference. On the left, you've got the defensive, imposing tower house. On the right, the elegant, symmetrical country house. With less need for fortification, the wealthy elite built houses designed for comfort and light and showing off their social status, not for withstanding a siege. It's all about comfort now, not combat.
And it wasn't just the fancy houses that were changing. The entire economic landscape was being reshaped. Rivers were harnessed to power mills for textiles and corn. Huge distilleries were set up. And those ancient copper mines, first worked way back in the Bronze Age, were revived with new industrial technology, completely transforming places like Alahis.
So, how in the world do we know all of this? How do archaeologists continue to find these stories that are hidden in the ground? Well, let's geek out for a minute and look at the cool tools that are in the modern archaeologist toolkit.
It's kind of amazing, really. Archaeologists now have this incredible technology that lets them see beneath the soil without ever digging a single hole. From a plane, tiny differences in crop color can reveal the outlines of ancient ditches. LiDAR uses lasers to create these super detailed 3D maps of the ground. And geophysics? That's basically like giving the Earth an ultrasound to find what's buried. It's amazing stuff.
And here's something that is absolutely crucial to remember. These ancient sites, these pieces of our shared history, they are overwhelmingly on private land, mostly farms. And that makes these landowners the unofficial custodians of our heritage. It's a huge responsibility and one that really deserves our respect. So from a simple field wall to a formidable castle, every single mark on the landscape tells the story of the people who came before us. Their story is written in stone, in earth, and in bronze. But here's the thing, the story isn't over. It's still being written by us right now. So the final question is, what marks will we leave behind for future generations to find?